Okay, how do we do number 8? Montrell? You match up both of your x's and y's, and how do you set them up? Yeah, as a proportion, exactly. So your proportion would look like what?
18
Over x, which is 6, okay, equals. Yeah, where does the y go, on the top or the bottom? Why does it go on the top and not the bottom? Good, because it's got to go in the same spot as the negative 18. Perfect. So there's your proportion. If you set it up a little bit differently, you could also have set it up like this. Negative 18 over y equals 6 over negative 8. And that would be exactly the same. So either one of those is fine. If you do y over x, as long, or you do y over y, x over x. Either one of those is fine. What are you going to have to do no matter what to solve it? Cross multiply, and I'm going to multiply negative 18 times what? Negative 8, which ended up giving us 144 equals 6y. So how do I finish that? And you end up with y equals 24. Good. How do you do a problem like number 3? How do you figure out if it's direct variation or not? Remind me, direct variation has to look like what? Y equals kx, so there can't be any what? Adding or subtracting. Well, how come, because I saw some people right away put no because there's adding in it, but this one actually is direct variation. How come this one's direct variation even though there's addition in it? What do you think, Diego?
You bring the 2x to the opposite.
Yeah, because you can't decide if it's direct variation until you have what? Y by itself. So right now, y is not by itself. So you said move the 2x to the other side, so you end up with 3y equals what? Negative 2x. Why is it a negative? Because it was positive over here, so to move it to this side, you have to subtract. And then how do you finish? Divide by 3, so you end up with y equals negative 2/3 x, which means your k is what? Negative 2/3, okay? So again, in number 2, this one was not direct variation because it had subtraction and y was already what? By itself. Here you've got to get y by itself, and then when you get y by itself, the addition disappears, so then it is direct variation. So just be careful with those. And again, direct variation just means there's a multiplication or division relationship between the x's and the y's. On the quiz, a lot of people were looking for relationships between the x's and the other x's. It's the x's and the y's. Okay, so we are going to talk about how to graph using slope and y-intercept. So how many of you guys, before we started talking about slope, before we started talking about intercepts, how many of you guys knew the equation y equals mx plus b? That's most of you. So most of you had heard that before. Even if you didn't know what it was, had you heard it before? Yeah. So y equals mx plus b is what? It's the slope formula. Not quite the slope formula because that's y minus y over x minus x, but it is a formula that includes slope, right? M is the slope. The b is the y-intercept. This is called the slope-intercept equation of a line. So every line anywhere has an equation. And that equation basically just tells you what to do when you want to plot that point or plot that line onto a graph. Now in the past, what we've done, let's say for instance I gave you y equals 2x plus 3. In the past, to plot it, you guys have made a chart. And what did you do here? What do we do here with this chart? Plug in what numbers? Yeah, because I told you those, right? Could you plug in any numbers? Yeah, you could plug in literally any number you want. Is that an annoying way to do this? Yes. Why is that annoying? I agree. I think that is a very annoying way to do this. I apologize for my previous self that made you do it that way. Why is that an annoying way to do this? Takes too long, and what else can happen? What else happened a lot of times when you did it this way? Brendan? What do you mean it repeated?
Like, you would get like messed up on the negative.
Yeah, you'd screw up on a negative. Even though you guys are really careful, a lot of times if you make one mistake, then what happens with the whole line?
It's wrong.
it's wrong, right? So it's a lot more chance for you to make mistakes. So what we're going to talk about now is how to avoid doing all that work and just graphing it from this equation, which you guys said you've seen before. And this, again, is the slope-intercept equation. Why do you think it's called slope-intercept? Because it has a y-intercept and it has a slope. It has the slope and it has the y-intercept, and that is enough information to plot something onto a coordinate plane. Because if I give you this, like in number 1, for example, which we'll make red, all right, if I give you the slope 3/4, what does that tell you about your line? It rises 3 and then runs 4. So when you have a point, you know that to get to the next point, you go up 3 and then over 4. I don't have a point, though, except that I give you the y-intercept. And remind me, go back to y-intercept, x-intercept. What does y-intercept mean? Where the line crosses the y-axis. Which one is the y-axis? The vertical one? So that's my point. So I know that if the y-intercept is -2, then at -2 on the y-axis, that line has to cross there. So I can put that point, and then to get to my next point, what do I have to do? Rise 3, run 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And now I've got the next point. All right? That's enough. All you need is 2 points to make a line, right? I usually do 3. I usually go forward 1 and then backwards the other. So if I wanted to go backwards, what would I have to do? Down 3, left 4. And then here would be another point on that line, and then there we go. Except imagine that it actually went through that point. Okay? So there's my line. I don't have to plug anything in. I don't have to worry about if my negatives and positives are right. I don't have to plug in zeros to find the x and y intercepts. All I have to do is identify my slope and my y-intercept. So let's make this one green. And where do I start for my green line? 4 where? On the x or y? Always on the y. So on the y-axis, I go up to 4. And then my slope is -2. So what do I do then?
So you go
Down 2. How come I go right 1?
Because it's like for 1, there isn't no negative sign.
It's just, there's no negative sign next to the 1, right? So I have a -2, and to write anything as a fraction, I just put that number over 1. So if I put it over 1, that means I rise -2, which means I go down, all right? And then I go over 1, but since it's a positive 1, it means I go to the right. So I'm going to take this line and go down 2 over 1, all right? If I want to go backwards, what would I do? Up 2, left 1. And there's my green line. That's very Christmassy. That's nice. All right. So that's my green line. I don't have to do, again, I don't have to plug anything in. I don't have to do anything except take the information that I'm given and put it on the graph. The biggest mistake people make is instead of doing a y-intercept, people think it's a x-intercept, and they start it on the x-axis. It always starts on the y. If it's in a slope-intercept equation, it's always starting on the y-axis. Okay, so that's our equation here. So m is your slope, and b is your y-intercept. So that means if I give you the equation of a line, say for instance I give you y equals 1/3 x plus 6, which one of those is the slope? 1/3. There's my slope is 1/3. And what's my y-intercept? Plus 6. So that means if I'm graphing that, where do I start? Plus 6. And then how do I get to the next point? Up 1, run 3. All right, up 1 over 3. And again, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to plug in 5 different numbers. I don't have to worry about domain to find my range. All I do is identify, here's my slope, and here's my y-intercept. All right, as long as it's in this format, y equals mx plus b. If the y is not by itself, what do you think you have to do? Simplify it so that the y is where? By itself. Remember, getting y alone is key. Okay. So this one right here is already graphed for us. This one right here is the red line right on this graph. Because what's the y-intercept here? -3. So this is my y-intercept. All right, so I went and started down here at -3. And then what's my slope? 4/1. Because you assume if it's a whole number that it's over 1. So what did I do to go from here to here? Went up 4 and then over 1. And there's your graph. Who can come try this one? Who can come do B? All right, Brendan? Ashley? Good. That's perfect. So,
So, okay, so like when it's a negative
Uh-huh.
sign and the 3 is a negative, so it'll go right. Right?
perfect.
And then,
Great. Okay, so Ashley had a good question while she was up here. This right here, -2/3, which one is negative?
Both.
No, not both. Why not? If they were both negative, -2, -3, what would happen? The negatives they would cancel out, they would go away, and it would actually be 2/3. So what Ashley said, if it's a -2/3, it's either this, -2 over +3, or +2 over -3. Either one will give you the same thing. Okay? Because that's what Ashley did. For her first one, she went down 2 and then right 3, just like this. And then for the second point, she went up 2, left 3, just like that. Okay? Both of these are right. This going down and left would not be right, because I'm going to do that in black. What would happen if I went down to left? Now my line is what? Nice negative or puff puff positive? Puff puff positive. So that means, is that correct? No. All right, so that's the way that I check myself. If my slope is negative, that means my line should go which way?
It should go,
Nice, negative.
yeah.
Downhill. You're skiing downhill, right? Okay, if it's like this, that means you did it wrong. So keep in mind, if this is a negative, then your line should be going downhill. If it's a positive, like this one was, then your line should be going uphill. And remember, we always go from left to right. All right, so then what do I do here? Diego.
Change it into slope.
Change it into slope intercept form. How do I do that?
You put the 3 on the other. Oh, yeah.
How do I do that? How would I get it? Brendan, what do you think?
So first, you do -3x.
Okay, first I'm going to do -3x. And if I do it here, where else do I do it?
On the other side.
On the other side, -3x. But wait, are those like terms? So can I do those? So then how do I write that?
No, I said -3x.
I know, I agree, but I can't do 8 minus 3x, right?
You're supposed to put next to it.
Oh, why?
That's just the way it is.
Because one of them has a what?
Variable.
Variable and the other does not. So when I write this, now I've got 2y equals, how do I want to write that?
-3x plus 8.
Why do I want to write -3x plus 8 instead of the other way around? It's, maybe. This is in what format? Y equals mx plus b. If you do it like this, 8 minus 3x, then that's not in slope-intercept form. So you want to put the one with the variable first. And it's a plus 8 because what kind of 8 was this? Positive. Now how do I finish?
your y-intercept form.
I got to get y by itself, though, so what do I have to get rid of still?
You have to divide the other
I have to divide by 2. If I divide by 2, what do I divide by 2 over here? Everything divided by 2. So what happens here? Y is by itself. How do I write this? How do I write this one then? Can I divide 3 by 2? I could, but what do I get? A decimal? I hate decimals. So instead of writing it as a decimal, how should I write it?
Fraction.
Just leave it as a fraction. What fraction is it? Negative 3 over 2. That's it, with your x right there. And then what's 8 divided by 2? 4. So now it's in what format? Y equals mx plus b. So who can come graph this one? Who can come graph this one? It's already in y equals mx plus b. What's the m? Negative 3 over 2. So that tells you you're going to go which way? Down 3 over 2. And then what about the y-intercept? 4. So who can come put it on the board? Ollie? That's right. Perfect. You could do, or you can just connect it and be done. I know, it's hard, right? Yeah. You can erase, or you can make it a thicker line. Sometimes that is... No, you're not. We have plenty of time. Yep.
Whenever you write with those, the actual writing shows up on the side.
Yeah, it's like, and even when I try to orient it, it still doesn't. That's perfect. The only thing I'm going to change is I'm going to put an arrow at both ends. All right, because the line goes on forever. Okay, so when you divide, do you divide one part or both parts?
Both parts.
Both parts. If it doesn't go in, do you write it as a decimal or a fraction? Fraction. Because if it's a decimal, this would be 1.5, negative 1.5. Does that make sense as a slope? No. You don't want a decimal for your slope. Leave it as a fraction. All right? And then this is always your x-intercept or your y-intercept? Always your y, which means you always start on which axis? On the y-axis. Okay? All right. Go forth and try these 4. If you want to do them on the same coordinate plane, if you just want to draw one, that's fine.